If you've been lusting after a Porsche Taycan, you might want to hold your horses a moment because the Audi e-tron GT has just arrived in town. The e-tron GT uses a 93.4 kilowatt hour battery and it has all-wheel drive thanks to a dual motor setup, with the rear axle using a 2-speed gearbox to ensure maximum acceleration. It can get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.1 seconds and has a total power output of 476 horsepower or 350 kilowatts. It also has a total driving range in WLTP of 479 kilometers. The boot compartment measures in at 405 litres, which is a pretty decent size, but if you need more space, there is a little bit of a trunk in the front, which is handy for either an overnight bag or to put your charging cables in, and conveniently that can be opened from a button on the inside of the driver's door. The standard specification for the e-tron GT in Ireland includes 19-inch alloy wheels, panoramic glass sunroof, satellite navigation, front and rear parking sensors, synthetic leather upholstery with heated front seats and also electrically adjustable front seats, the Audi smartphone interface, lane departure warning, a 3 rear seat setup, 3-zone air conditioning, leather sports steering wheel, electric folding door mirrors, a digital radio and an automatic dimming rear view mirror. Pricing for the e-tron GT will start at €102,397 in Ireland. When it comes to interiors, Audi has always done a very good job, and it's no different inside the e-tron GT. In fact, it's probably the best interior it's put into one of its cars since the latest generation of A3, and it's easily the best execution of balance between digitalization of having the screens and having physical buttons. So up top, what have you got? You've got the same steering wheel that we see in a lot of modern Audis now. It's very slender, very nice, feels great in your hands. You've got a 12.3-inch display up front here. Very, very similar to what you're going to find in all the other Audis. It'll show you your battery display, your range remaining, and you can obviously go through different views then depending on what you want to have. There's a 10.1-inch display up top here. Again, it's running just the standard Audi infotainment system, but it does have wireless smartphone mirroring with Apple CarPlay, and you've got Android Auto there too. Where it gets a little bit better is then a little bit further here. So you have 2 vents, center vents are here. You've got 2 vents on either side then, but you've got physical controls here for things like your heated seats to adjust the temperatures, and it's all very nicely done with these kind of rocker switches. And although they're just plastic buttons, there's a really high quality feel to them, and I do like that. Further down then you've got your drive select function as well, so you've got a couple of different drive modes. You can have it in dynamic, you've got comfort, efficiency mode as well, or efficient mode. You have a quite nice starter button right here, and you've got this little toggle switch for selecting drive or reverse, and you've also then got an electric handbrake. So it's all very compact. You've got a little circular dial here which is touch sensitive. That's also what we've seen in things like the Audi A3. There's 2 decent cup holders. You know, there's a lot of space to put. You've got the phone box, Audi phone box in here, so you want to slot your phone in there. So it's good amount of space. You don't feel very hemmed in. It all looks very nice. It all feels very nice. The quality of the materials are all top notch, but that's what we expect from Audi, especially from a car costing this much. It does have the panoramic glass roof. You can, as an option, get a carbon fiber roof, but the panoramic glass roof is really nice and adds a lot more light into the cabin, especially sitting in the back. So let's have a sit in there and show you what that's like. In the back, Audi has very generously provided 3 seat belts, but realistically this is a car for 4 people because that middle seat is very, very slender. It's just something to bear in mind. If you're a small child, it's probably going to be okay sitting there. 3 adults is going to be pretty cozy even over a short journey, so that's just something to bear in mind. Now, part of the reason for that is because of how these nice sculpted outer seats are. They do have a little bit of a lip to them here, a little bit of side bolstering, but if you're sitting in the middle, you're going to be sitting kind of on that. And because of the battery layout, you do have what would effectively be like a transmission tunnel here easing into your foot space. You're going to have to squeeze your feet in either side, and you have the rear vents for the air conditioning. But it's not all bad. Now, Germans have very cleverly set out what they call a foot garage, and what that means is how the battery is laid out in the rear. There's no battery cells right in front of where my feet are, so that means that my feet sit a little bit further down. Basically means that my knees aren't up around my ears, so that's quite good. It adds a little bit more comfort, especially because you sit quite low because of this sloping roofline. Now, better news again is that I've actually got quite a good amount of leg room. As you can see, I've got, you know, at least 5-6 inches there, so that's pretty decent. And this driver's seat is set up for my driving position. Now, I am 5'9", so as you can see, I can stretch out my legs a little bit. Even if I slouch down a little bit, I've still got a decent amount of space here. And because of the panoramic glass roof, well, I've got about 2 inches there. It's not huge, but it's welcome. And this glass panel is great for the people sitting in the back because you've got great visibility and it floods light in. Now, we're not going to get into range and what it really does, because today it's just about having a very brief first drive on Irish roads of the Audi e-tron GT. And the initial impression is that of a car that is, well, it feels incredibly well made. It's something that I've previously said about the standard e-tron and the e-tron Sportback, and it's very much true of this e-tron GT. It feels extremely well made, very solid on the road. This car has air suspension on it, and it works very well. Like all air suspension, it's not exactly a carpet of air that you're riding on, but it does do things like going over speed bumps and things like that very, very well. The very sharp impacts or high frequency impacts that you'll get, like for example on an expansion joint on a motorway, still do kind of bang through the cabin, but that's the same of pretty much all cars I've ever driven with air suspension. But it, you know, the finer stuff, the greater surface imperfections that you see over a long stretch, it evens those out very, very well. And also you do have the added benefit that you can adjust the height of the car. So if you have, for example, a particular steep driveway or you're in a multi-story car park, you can actually increase the height of the car ever so slightly, just to give that nose a bit more added protection from getting a scrape. Now, what is it like in the bends? Well, even in the comfort mode, it holds its own very, very well. You get the impression, like with so many of these electric cars, that all the weight is very low down, and it's just explosive acceleration, even in the comfort mode. We're not even in the dynamic mode yet. Regardless of what speed you're doing, just prod the throttle and it just surges forward. That electric torque is just so addictive. It's gorgeous. It's really nice. But it does it all very, very refined. If you just give the throttle a stab, it's not like necessarily an on-off switch that you're flicking. You know, the modulation of how this car is calibrated, even down to how you apply the brake. If you're just gradually applying a little bit of brakes, it doesn't bite, it doesn't grab. All of those aspects are very, very nice. The steering, again, is pretty sweet. It's got various different modes depending on what engine map you're running or what motor map you're running. So in dynamic mode, for example, if we hit the drive select and then press it down to dynamic mode, it adds a little bit more weight to the steering. Not a huge amount. It's just really more to give you the feeling that you're driving something a little bit more dynamic. Now, the other thing that's very obvious to this car is the sound, because Audi has installed both internal and external sound speakers to give the car a bit more of a digital rumble. Because let's face it, RS cars of the past were fantastic. You had the naturally aspirated V10 of the Audi R8. You had that amazing 5-cylinder engine that is in cars like the RS3 and a whole heap of V8s. And with this, well, it gives you a bit of everything. It's definitely kind of V8 kind of rumble when you're in the dynamic mode. And some people will like that. Some people will like the fact that this car, interestingly, it's only when you engage drive. So if you start the car even in dynamic mode and you're parked, it won't actually make any sound. And as soon as you engage drive, you then get that rumble into life. And some people will think it's a novelty. yes, it is a novelty, but a lot of people are going to like that. Now, if you don't like that, you can put it into the efficiency mode and there's no sound then. So it's quiet. It is the electric car that you would probably expect it to be. Now, everyday life. So we're driving down here and there's speed humps coming up. I'm already in dynamic mode, and even on 20-inch wheels, it just absorbs them so well. It just rounds them off really nicely. And if you engage the comfort setting, it just makes it that little bit softer again. It just glides over them very, very nicely. So, if you're going to be driving in a city or driving in your urban commute or whatever it is you do, from a comfort perspective at least, this car does nail the brief very, very well. Now, part of that comfort as well is the fact that it does have a bit of meat in the sidewalls. Even on 20-inch wheels, there's still actually a healthy amount of tire sidewall there to add a little bit more comfort, a little bit more shock absorbency, and help bring down the road noise a little bit more. Even so, even when you come to a complete stop, you still get that sound. So there is still both an internal and an external sound. But to all intents and purposes, this drives very much like a regular, very refined premium car. Leaving aside the explosive acceleration, you can drive this very, very normally. It will, it's very comfortable. You don't have to be doing your launch control starts at every opportunity. In fact, you'll probably do it a few times and then realize, well, okay, the novelty is over with that. But there's other aspects and a few more facets to the Audi e-tron GT. For example, it has a very good heat pump and battery thermal management system. So, for example, if you're doing a longer journey and you haven't had a chance to charge it at home, if you input your destination and you do happen to need, for example, say you're driving from Dublin to Cork and you need to stop off in Cashel at the Ionity fast charger, it will factor that into your sat nav that you need to stop. It will already know for how long typically you will need to be stopped and will factor that into your destination time. And as you approach the fast charging station, it will begin to prime the battery. So it will bring the battery up to temperature, ensure that it is at its optimum to suck down as much energy as quickly as possible. And for a lot of people who are going to buy this car, time is going to be important, and that's the kind of thing that owners will like about this car. You do have charging ports on either side. Both are capable of AC, and then you have a CCS on the passenger side. And obviously with the 800 volt architecture in the e-tron GT, it's very much set up for future proofing. So it will be able to take faster charges. So even though most of our fast chargers at the moment are probably only 50 kilowatts in most places in Ireland, as they're increased to 125 kilowatt chargers and the like, this car will be able to take advantage of those. So that's another plus, another thing to consider. In terms of negative aspects, well, there's not a whole lot I can tell you just yet, because as I mentioned, this is only a quick first drive of the car. So we're not going to get into range or anything like that at the moment. I've got the car currently showing me about 83% battery capacity, and it says I've got 304 kilometers, but the way we've been driving and filming today, it's not representative of what we're going to do. But joining a motorway here now, and literally just 2 prods of the throttle and you're right up to motorway cruising speed already. And that's just the surge, the smoothness, the refinement of all these things are what make this so appealing for a lot of people. Not to mention the fact that it's around 15,000 euros less than a Porsche Taycan, which shares almost identical architecture. They're around 60% the same. So what would you rather have? I think on looks alone, this is a better car than the Taycan. The interior is fantastic. Okay, maybe the Porsche interior is a little bit nicer, but the exterior of this car, especially this color, looks fantastic. I think this is the one that I'd have, and I'd rather have a highly spec'd version of this car rather than a entry-level Porsche Taycan. But what would I know? Why don't you tell me in the comments, tell me what you think about this car. Which one of them would you have? As first impressions go, this is quite an appealing prospect. So that's a quick first look at the Audi e-tron GT. If you want to know more about this car, head over to our website, which is CompleteCar.ie. We have a detailed review of the car there, including specification and pricing details, not to mention reviews of all of its rivals as well. So if you're doing a little bit of car shopping, CompleteCar.ie is where you need to go. In the meantime, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please do hit a thumbs up button down below, and we'd love to know what you think, so tell us in the comments what you think about this car. Would you have this over a Tesla Model S Plaid? Would you have it over a Porsche Taycan? We'd love to know what you think, and your feedback is really important to us. So please do take the time, get involved in the comments below and tell us what you think. And finally, please, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you do so, hit the notifications. Next time we upload a video, you'll be alerted to that too. Thanks for watching.